Hello there, you're watching All 24 News, world news program coming to you live from the capital Algiers. I'm your host, Krifa Zachary, and up next are the top stories. Zionist strikes escalate in southern Gaza. 50 are killed and over 1.7 million face hunger and thirst. The Red Cross says Gaza is now hell on earth. Also in our news, Algeria steps up diplomacy, calling for peace and sovereignty in Yemen and Sudan. Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf holds key talks with global counterparts as well. Coming up as well in Morocco, mass marches slam normalization and back Palestine. Protesters condemn weapon ships docking in national ports and accuse the Makhzen regime of covering up for Zionist crimes. And later on, talks between Tehran and Washington over Iran's nuclear file wrap up with no deal in hand, but Tehran calls the mood constructive and reaffirms its push for a fair agreement. Stick around, we've got the details shortly. Welcome back to the program. It's great to have you with us tonight. We begin our news with the latest from Gaza, where the toll on civilians deepens by the hour. In Khan Yunis, airstrikes hit tents sheltering displaced families, 6 killed, including a child, 5 others wounded. In central Gaza City, a father and son lost their lives when their home was leveled by an airstrike. Drone attacks pounded Kizan and Najjar. El Mawasi and a Tufah neighborhood live in infants and the elderly among the dead. In a Shujaiya neighborhood as well, a baby girl died in her mother's arms hours after their home was bombed. Schools meant to be safe havens are now in the crosshairs of the fire. In Beit Lahia, the Khalifa school was hit overnight. 3 were killed, children injured as they slept. In Deir el-Bala and Nusayrat, more strikes turned shelters into death traps, making the scale of civilian suffering staggering and on the rise. Similarly, on Saturday, Zionist forces ramped up their assault on southern Gaza, sealing off Rafah under a full siege and unleashing intense air and ground attacks. Residential blocks were flattened as troops pushed through, carving out the so-called Morag axis, effectively cutting off Rafah from Khan Yunis. Evacuation orders poured in for Khan Yunis residents, even as the bombardment showed no signs of slowing. Meanwhile, the Palestinian Ministry of Health this time in Gaza reports 21 bodies and 64 wounded rushed to hospitals within just 24 hours. Since March 18th, the death toll has reached 1,563, with 4,004 others wounded. With the assault now in its 550th day, the total death toll from the ongoing Zionist aggression has surpassed 50,900, with over 116,000 injured. In the Gaza Strip, still, the cycle of violence grinds on, with every dawn bringing fresh devastation and every night cloaked in fear. The humanitarian catastrophe, already among the worst in modern history, is deepening by the day. Let's get the details with Yassine Riktina.
In the heart of the besieged Gaza Strip, the war machine shows no signs of slowing. The Zionist entity has widened its ground and air assault on the south, with Rafah and Khan Yunis once again caught in the eye of the storm. From above, bombs rain down. On the ground, tanks roll through shattered streets, and from one neighborhood to the next, forced evacuation orders drive already exhausted families into another round of fear and flight.
I've been displaced more than 15 times now. Once I was displaced 3 times in one night. What did we do to deserve this? We're all civilians, women and children running from one place to another. There's no room. People are sleeping on the streets, without blankets, without shelter. I'm displaced with my young children, and I don't know where to go.
The death toll rises by the hour. At least 50 Palestinians, most of them children, have died not from bullets or bombs, but from thirst and hunger. And with over 1.7 million cases of waterborne disease, illness now spreads as fast as fire. The International Red Cross describes the scene simply: hell on earth. Their field hospitals are nearly out of supplies, and hope itself is running dry.
Unfortunately, the ceasefire collapsed, and we are now finding ourselves in a situation that I have to describe as hell on earth. It is extremely dangerous for the population to move, but it's especially also dangerous for us to operate.
But this is not only a story of statistics or strike zones. It is the story of lives fragmented, uprooted and tossed between temporary shelters that no longer exist.
For the love of God, we call on Muslims, have mercy on us. We call on religious scholars. Muslims here are dying. We've been displaced a billion times, and we don't know where to go. Ask anyone, no one knows. People are thrown out onto the streets, even children. For the love of God, Muslims.
And as the occupation forces tighten their grip on Rafah, imposing a total siege and carving out a new military corridor, the so-called Morag Axis, the city is being cut off from Khan Yunis, choking the strip even further. Each morning brings a new evacuation order. Each night, another family packs up the little they still have. And all across Gaza, the bitter truth remains the same: nowhere is safe.
Still with Gaza news, Hamas has once again emphasized that any prisoner exchange must be paired with a ceasefire. In a telegram statement, the group accused Netanyahu of extending the war to hold on to power, warning that each day of delay only deepens the genocide against Palestinians and leaves the fate of the occupation's prisoners uncertain.
The growing calls within the occupying entity to end the war and free the captives confirm Netanyahu's responsibility for prolonging the war and for the suffering of both his captives and our people. The blood of Gaza's children and the captives of the occupation are the price of Netanyahu's ambitions to stay in power and escape prosecution. The equation is clear: prisoner release in exchange for a ceasefire. The world accepts it, but Netanyahu rejects it. Every day of delay means more killing of innocent civilians from our people and an uncertain fate for the occupation's captives.
In international response, Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf reaffirmed Algeria's steadfast support for Palestine during talks with his Palestinian counterpart at the Antalya Diplomatic Forum. They discussed the escalating Zionist aggression in Gaza, Al-Quds, and the West Bank. Mr. Attaf highlighted Algeria's ongoing coordination with Palestine at the UN Security Council to confront the mounting threats to the Palestinian cause and national project. In the escalating situation in the Middle East, Yemen's Houthi group announced on Friday it had targeted the U.S. aircraft carrier Harry S. Truman with missiles and drones in the northern Red Sea. This attack coincided with the arrival of a second U.S. carrier in the region. Military spokesman Yahya Sarri'a vowed the group would continue targeting hostile naval vessels, reaffirming its commitment to defending Yemen by both land and sea.
تؤكد القوات المسلحة
The Yemeni armed forces will not hesitate to target all American warships in the Red Sea and the Arabian Sea in retaliation for the aggression against our country. The operation came in response to the U.S. aggression against our country and its crimes against our people. We confirm that the U.S. Army has failed so far to affect our military capabilities.
Shifting focus to another story now, Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf and his Yemeni counterpart Shahi Mohsen al-Zindani explored Algeria's potential role in supporting efforts to resolve Yemen's crisis, leveraging its seat on the UN Security Council. The meeting, held Saturday at the Antalya Diplomatic Forum in Turkey, also covered the latest developments in Yemen. Similarly, Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf and his Sudanese counterpart emphasized Algeria's key role at the UN Security Council in supporting Sudan's security, stability, and sovereignty. The meeting held Saturday at the Antalya Diplomatic Forum in Turkey also focused on the latest developments in Sudan. Still with Algerian Foreign Affairs Minister's activities, on Saturday, Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf and Venezuelan counterpart Ivan Eduardo Gil Pinto discussed key international and regional issues of mutual interest. They also reviewed the progress of bilateral cooperation initiatives, which are a priority for both countries' presidents, according to a statement from the Algerian Foreign Ministry. And in another Algeria-related development, Algeria and Cuba this time reaffirmed their commitment to strengthening historic cooperation in the health and medical sectors on Saturday. During the 10th World Day in Algiers, doctors emphasized the importance of advancing health research through field studies and specialist discussions, while also expanding medical cooperation into new specialties to benefit both nations.
Nuestra cooperación con Argelia.
Our cooperation with Algeria is of a great value, both for the Algerian people and for the Cuban people. This collaboration began with 50 Cuban specialists. Today we have nearly 900, and there are no limits to continuing cooperation in this country. We are preparing to sign a new agreement that will allow us to increase the number of Cuban professionals working especially in the south, in the desert area. This national event was preceded by 4 regional conferences held with the participation of Cuban and Algerian doctors in each of the regions, where more than 200 research papers were presented by both Algerian and Cuban doctors, and in some cases, jointly by Algerian and Cuban physicians. This cooperation, which continues with Algeria, is precisely celebrating its 62nd anniversary this year, and it operates based on the requests made by Algeria to our Ministry of Health.
My participation here focused on breast cancer in men, which is not as common as in women. I am very proud of the collaboration I have had with my Cuban colleagues since I started working in 2021 at the Mohammed Boudiaf Hospital in Ouargla, where we exchanged experiences, and I hope that more Cuban doctors will come in the future.
In cooperation news still, Vice President of the Algerian Council of the Nation, Mohamed Rida Salah, praised the strong coordination between Algeria and China on key international issues, especially the Palestinian and Sahrawi causes. During a meeting with a Chinese delegation from the Religious Affairs Committee of the People's Political Consultative Conference in Algiers on Saturday, Salah described their bilateral relations as exemplary, rooted in a strategic and fruitful partnership. Chinese official Zhang Yizhong highlighted the 67 years of high-level, trust-based relations between the two nations as a model of successful cooperation. And in regional news, thousands of Moroccans took to the streets of cities like Marrakesh and Oujda in massive nighttime protests demanding an end to normalization with the Zionist entity. Demonstrators waved Palestinian flags and chanted against the Moroccan regime's ongoing normalization efforts, despite the ongoing genocide in Gaza. In Morocco still, the Moroccan Front to Support Palestine and Combat Normalization called on citizens to join a large-scale movement against the Makhzen regime's approval of weapon shipments to the Zionist entity via Moroccan ports. In a statement, the group condemned the ongoing arrival of warships carrying military supplies for occupation forces at ports in Tangier and Casablanca. They urged a protest outside Casablanca port on Friday evening and mass marches on Sunday.
The Moroccan authorities continue to deepen their relations with the Zionist entity at all levels, the most dangerous of which is the facilitation of the passage of ships carrying military equipment through Moroccan ports in Tangier and Casablanca. The passage of these shipments through Moroccan ports inevitably means the maintenance of fighter jets and the continuation of the genocide of the Palestinian people in Gaza.
In similar news, the boycott, divestment and sanctions movement in Morocco accused the government of using exhibitions as platforms to whitewash entities' crimes against Palestinians. The movement condemned the participation of Zionist companies involved in the genocide using artificial intelligence at the GTEx Africa exhibition in Marrakesh from April 14th to and including the 16th. It called their involvement complicity in genocide and apartheid, criticizing the government's silence on these crimes and its ongoing normalization efforts. The movement also urged a political and moral stance in support of Palestinians.
Defending Palestine is not just an emotional slogan, it is a concrete practice rooted in a principled moral and political stance. This clarity demands that we not remain passive or complicit, even through silence. Hosting these companies on Moroccan soil amounts to a continuation of normalization with the occupation and an attempt to whitewash its image, an image that the world increasingly sees for what it truly is. Technology companies cannot be separated from arms manufacturers when it comes to their complicity in apartheid, ethnic cleansing, genocide, and the expansion of illegal settlements.
Shifting focus to another cause, Sahrawi President Brahim Ghali accused Morocco of trying to export its violations of international law and human rights from occupied Sahrawi territories to other countries. In a speech during the Council of Ministers meeting, Ghali highlighted how Moroccan repression has extended to Europeans who stand in solidarity with the Sahrawi people. He stressed that Morocco's actions are a response to its inability to break the determination of the Sahrawis. And in other news, U.S.-Iran nuclear talks wrapped up Saturday in Oman, with Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff holding what were described as constructive discussions. An Omani mediator facilitated the talks. Araghchi said both sides are close to agreeing on a framework for future negotiations and reaffirmed their commitment to reaching a mutually acceptable deal.
What is clear at this stage is that the negotiations are direct and from our perspective are solely about the nuclear issue and with the necessary will to reach an agreement based on equality and one that ensures the national interest of the Iranian people.
On a related note, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi confirmed the Muscat talks took place in a constructive and positive atmosphere. In a Telegram post, he said Iran and the U.S. will continue discussions next week, noting that the two delegations held a brief meeting following the talks.
I believe it went back and forth between the Iranian and US delegations about 4 times, and both sides conveyed their respective viewpoints to each other. It lasted about 2.5 hours, and in my opinion, as a first meeting, it was productive. It took place in a calm and very respectful atmosphere, and no inappropriate language was used.
Similarly, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi reaffirmed Tehran's commitment to pursuing a fair and honorable agreement with the U.S. Speaking ahead of the talks, he said Iran agreed to participate despite a strong opposition to the Trump administration's maximum pressure policy and repeated military threats.
We participated with the necessary seriousness. Our intention is to reach a fair and honorable agreement from a position of equality. If the other side has entered with the same approach, then God willing, there will be a chance for a preliminary understanding that could lead to a negotiated path. This is the first meeting, and in it many fundamental initial issues will be clarified, including if there is sufficient will on both sides, a decision will be made on a timeline.
And in another topical development, after months of clashes with allies and a tough stance on tariffs, President Trump says he's open to trade talks with China, but only if Beijing doesn't push back. Here's Zahra Farjani with the details.
After months of clashing with allies and doubling down on tariffs, President Trump says he's ready to talk trade with China, but not if Beijing pushes back. White House Press Secretary insists this isn't just Trump's fight.
If China intends to make a deal with the United States, if China continues to retaliate, it's not good for China. The United States of America is the strongest, best economy in the world, as evidenced by the more than 75 countries who have called the administration immediately to cut good deals. So the president wants to do what's right for the American people. He wants to see fair trade practices around the globe, and that's his intention and his goal.
But while Washington flexes, Tesla folds. The electric car maker suspended new orders in China and pulled its Model S and Model X just hours after Trump slapped a 105% tariff on Chinese EVs. The company's stock has been cut in half since December, hit hard by tariff fallout. Still, Trump is upbeat. Aboard Air Force One, he downplayed recent bond market turmoil, calling it contained and temporary, and praised rising Wall Street indices.
You know, a lot of people say, was that, no, it wasn't. What was it? I want to put the country in an unbelievable economic position, which is where we should be.
He also reaffirmed faith in US dollar, calling it the world's most trusted currency.
People understand what we're doing. I think the dollar will go way up. I'm not talking about you're talking about the value of the dollar, which is what I'm talking about too. I think the dollar is tremendous. It's going to be stronger than ever.
At the same time, Trump's team is scrambling to build leverage, calling up allies like Japan, Vietnam, India and South Korea to form a united front against China. But there is a catch. Trump may have already burned too many bridges, from threatening Canada and Mexico to bashing the EU. The president has alienated many of the same allies he now needs. According to observers right now, the US is an unreliable partner. They don't even know how they come back from that. So the question isn't just what will China do, it's will America's friends even pick up the phone?
Moving on to the UK now, in Birmingham, what began as a workers' strike has now morphed into a full-blown sanitation crisis. Piles of garbage, swarms of rats, and growing frustration among residents. Salma Nasib has the story.
Trash is taken over Birmingham. Black bags and overflowing bins now line the streets as the city starts to resemble a giant dump. Residents say the situation is getting out of control.
It's been nearly 8 weeks now. We've had rubbish accumulated. Sometimes they come along 2-3 weeks later, take it, but obviously now it's getting even worse because the bins are full. The recycling in some of the bins is still there, starting to smell. The hot weather obviously is not helping. Rat infestation is starting to take place.
This situation seems to be caused by a long-running labor dispute. Since January, around 300 sanitation workers have staged a series of walkouts over wages and working conditions. But since March 11th, the strike has become indefinite and the garbage hasn't stopped piling up. Residents now haul their own trash to designated collection points.
Pay money, obviously, they deserve the pay. It's not an easy thing to do, is it? Look, we're doing their work. I know how hard it is. I will lift for the bill line as well. And it's not easy, is it? And then they got to do this 7 days a week, isn't it? And all the bags they can pick up, so they deserve it. Just pay money, that's it, end of story.
The government is now warning of a public health emergency, with rising concerns about disease and rats. Birmingham City Council says negotiations are ongoing and hopes for resolution as soon as possible. But now, the city remains buried in its own waste.
And now it's time to catch up on other news stories making headlines around the globe in the News in Brief, this time by Sofian Kenturi. Let's follow.
The UN support mission in Libya announced the advisory committee has resumed meetings to address key electoral issues. In a Facebook post, the mission said it aims to develop a comprehensive proposal with practical options to support credible national elections. The report is expected later this month, based on sound technical and political foundations. Sudan's army says more than 100 civilians were killed and dozens injured in attacks by rapid support forces on Zamzam displacement camp near Al-Fashir, North Darfur. The assaults began Friday and continued into Saturday. Russia's defense ministry said its air defenses shot down 36 Ukrainian drones overnight, mainly over Kursk and Rostov regions. Meanwhile, Moscow accused Kiev of violating the deal over 60 times, despite US-brokered truce on energy infrastructure strikes from March 18th. Bloomberg reports Turkey lost around $10 billion in foreign reserves last week as state banks sold dollars to defend the lira amid US policy-driven market chaos. Reserves jumped from $97 billion in mid-March to $77.8 billion by April 4th.
That's the end of our program. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, have a good one.